Great. Wow. Thank you, guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. What is deal sourcing? Someone said, so, on this table, someone raised their hand.
Is it basically finding the right property?
Yeah, part of it.
Oh, yeah.
Finding the right property.
Or finding a good deal.
Great.
Source to someone else, yeah.
So, property sourcing or deal sourcing, right? It's you finding discounted property. All right? It's all about finding a discounted property. How many of you bought the home that you currently live in and you didn't negotiate correctly? Show of hands. Property sourcing is all about how can you add value? How can you negotiate something that's priced at £200,000, get £10,000 off, £20,000 off, £30,000 off? So when you present it to an investor, someone else who has no time to sit on Rightmove, Zoopla, Gumtree, all these different online platform auction booklets, right? So the investors can what? Make higher return or generate a higher return. That is your role. Your role is to understand what a good deal is. Find a discount around it and then sell it to an investor. Now, the benefit of being a deal sourcer is that you are helping the buyer, all right? You're not helping the seller. Lettings agents help the what? Seller. So whether it's renting a property, they help the landlord. They don't help the tenant. This is one of the reasons why the government gave so much power to the tenant once they're in your property, and they can screw you over because they know they didn't have a fair deal when they paid the rent. All right? So a deal sourcer's role is to always help the who? The buyer, or to help the renter. So for example, Shelley is in care industry. Right now, if she's looking to find a property to rent to provide care, most times, most landlords are not going to listen to her because she's going to say all the wrong things. But as a deal sourcer, you can say all the right things to the lettings agents, to the landlord, and negotiate on her behalf and say, okay, I'm going to take this property from you for 5 years. And I'm going to pay you rent month in, month out. Or I'm going to help you buy your house and we're going to complete in the next 30 days. Whereas the average property buyer takes about 6 to 8 months to complete these days though. So your role as a deal sourcer is to negotiate. But in order for you to negotiate, you have to understand that you have to put your commitment into knowledge. So as a property deal sourcer, you are not making any financial commitment. You are just a middleman, a facilitator. All right, somebody who is in America, they call it property brokerage or deal brokerage. The fact is 90% of property investors in the whole of UK, or rather property buyers in the UK, they're not negotiators. They don't know how to negotiate. Because it's a skill you have to develop if you become aware of it. So as a property sourcer, you're basically getting paid for the knowledge, your time to sit down there, make a few phone calls, look at a few deals, look at a few areas. Why should somebody buy? Why should somebody rent? And that's the role. Does that make sense? You're a deal facilitator. Now, one of the greatest parts of being a deal sourcer is that you are finding deals and you're negotiating it in such a way where it benefits the buyer, so the buyer can actually even pay you more. For you to be a good deal sourcer, you have to have the market knowledge. As property people, we don't just buy every property. So because you would not want to be the guy who has 20 properties and still drives a bin truck. And the reason why the guy does that, because he had no knowledge. So for you as a deal sourcer, you need to have knowledge and you have to use that knowledge to find the right deal. Negotiation. A lot of us, how many of you are so shy to negotiate? Show of hands. It's bad, it's good, depending on how you apply. Some people don't love, they don't like. The moment you negotiate some people, they actually get offended. But there are ways you can actually negotiate indirectly that they will have no choice than to just say, oh yeah, you're having a chat with them. When you're negotiating, you can't be arrogant about it. But a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to charge you £3,000. No, let me pay you £1,000. And if you say that flat, who's going to listen? And that's what people learn to do, because most of us are being taught in the workplace rather than taught in the business environment place. Now, you have to be good with numbers. You have to be able to show the investor how much they're putting in and how much they're what? Getting out. The reason why they're paying you is because of that, because they don't know how much they're going to put. At least you must be able to speculate at 90 to 95% of what the deal is going to cost. And when you speculate with higher numbers, it's always better for you to actually deliver the deal to them even cheaper than you speculated. That makes you a good deal sourcer. So you got to be good with the ability to show them, your client, the buyer, how much money they're putting in and how much money they're getting what? Out. So that is whether it's rent to rent, whether you're helping them to find a land. And you must also be able to understand your exit strategies. So what is exit strategy? So your exit strategy is what is the end goal? So it's just a property language. Your exit is, service accommodation. Your exit, so you bought a house or you rented a house on a rent-to-rent basis. What's the exit? HMO. What's the exit? Care home. What's the exit? Single family dwelling. Does that make sense? Now, the biggest part of being a deal sourcer in the UK is that most deal sourcer, they always get very quickly finding the right deal for these people. So people who are looking for what? Rent to rent. Because rent to rent is a rented property being rented out again, but the property being used on a room by room basis. Does that make sense? As a property sourcer, you're looking for service accommodation. So you've watched TV, oh, people are making so much money on SA. You know, a lot of people are getting into SA, and the person who needs to find them that deal is who? The deal sourcer. Because these deals here, to get into rent to rent, you're looking about what, £10,000 to £15,000, depending on what location. To set up your first SA, you're looking at, again, about the same amount. If you're in London, I'm using London numbers, by the way. About 10K, to 15K to set up your first one. But if you're in Sunderland, like my man from Sunderland, if you're looking to get into rent-to-rent SA, rent-to-rent HMO, the rent there is like what, £800, £500, depending on the area. So with about £5,000 in Sunderland, you can find a property that will suit rent-to-rent, find a property that will do SA, which means people coming down to watch football match when Sunderland versus Newcastle is playing. And the person who needs to find them that deal is a deal sourcer. So you can have all this knowledge today, but you can also find those deals. Instead of holding on to this property for yourself, you then need to find someone who is an investor and sell it to them. So a few things you need to take down, all right, in order for you to set up a property sourcing company. Now that we kind of understand what property sourcing is. By the way, this same structure is the same structure you need as a property consultant. The difference between property consultant and a deal sourcer is that property consultant do more than the deal sourcer. So all these different 3C codes here allows the company's house to identify the industry of which you are in. So every single organization, every single company in this country is identified by an industry. You also must, year in, year out, obviously, once you start trading, you need to tell, HMRC what you do so you can pay your corporation tax. All right, so most of you are still newbies, but you can take that screen right there. And what you can also do is to add all these different details here into a spreadsheet, or you can actually put them in a Word document. So for example, C code number 618-68100, what is that? Now, there are other things that you need to be aware as well. As a property sourcer, you need to have a professional indemnity insurance. I'll go through all the costs. Ideally, you want your insurance policy to cover you up to at least £100,000, because anyone can come and sue you if you provide the wrong information to them. It's also important that you have a employer's liability insurance, because as you set up a company, all right, you become the employer of that organization. Does that make sense? Now, you also need to be a member of the property redress scheme, all right, in order for you to perform these services. And that is all you need to be aware of theoretically around all things property sourcing.